Wherever they went to, whichever world they were visiting, seeking shelter and supplies, they have never felt welcome. Their stays were short, their pleadings were unheard and dismissed. The locals chased them out like vagrants and undesirables that only brought trouble, to the point that their collective species was considered bad luck whenever they boarded a ship or docked into a port. This was the fate of Zorani. Zorani were a nomadic species, traveling from planet to planet either alone or in tightly knit packs, sometimes fighting among themselves for resources and whatever scavenging ground they came across. Sometimes they cooperated together for greater causes, but most of the time their society was in a constant state of flux, doomed to wander for eternity ever since their homeworld fell prey to an invasion a long, long time ago. It's not to say that Zorani are helpless. They were apt warriors. Their eyes allowed them to see in the dark, and their agile bodies made them especially useful for combat. Their evolution started them off as solitary hunters, mostly active during the nocturnal hours on their home, but they had capability to band together into packs. Their evolution reflected today as well, as they mostly hunt on their own, eking out their existence as bounty hunters, scavengers, and assassins. And when a pack tactic is demanded, they band together into well-organized, agile raiding formation and then disperse. This did not help their reputation at all. Despite their usefulness and aptitude, Zorani were still an unwelcome sight in most of the region ruled over by a council made up of several governments. Whether it's because they evolved from species that looked and acted like a universally despised life forms that most considered vermin, or any animals resembling Zorani earned disfavor by simply looking like a Zorani, remains a mystery, but it led to suffering of both. This had created a culture of overprotectiveness and care over their non-sapient cousins, and wherever Zorani went, they did their best to care and protect their fellow vermin, as the civilized races called them, sometimes earning the ire of those who were trying to get rid of them, an extermination in the name of preserving the ecosystem. Some Zorani even made their own personal crusade, developing a concept of seeking out non-sapient creatures that were known as Zeranoids in the council space, a name uttered with scorn. When one such a ship met a violent reaction to them illegally landing on a frontier world to obtain food, it had to run. It had been chased out of the council space, surrounded by border patrol ships on all sides. In the heat of the pursuit, with their fates uncertain, the captain of the pack ship had to make a call to ensure the survival of the entire crew and their non-sapient wards, to go beyond the familiarity of council space into the dark unknown, a feat very few dared to do. Leaving everything they knew behind, the scorn and disdain, the crew went into unexplored space. Traveling for weeks in the dark void, they were considering turning back. But something awoke in them, curiosity for what lies beyond. Just when the crew considered turning back, something pulled them forward again, and they wandered and kept on wandering for months. All they knew about it from stories is that a different breed of life existed out there, a new species. But nobody has ever seen it. Finally, the Zorani has found a planet that showed sign of life. A planet not on any council-mandated charts. It was still pristine, with several settlements and one working starport. Carefully, they brought their ship running in silent operation during the local nighttime. Carefully, they disembarked on their light feet and checked the perimeter. But someone has already spotted them and was there to welcome them. Sitting on top of a nearby felled trunk of what once was a tree, there was a creature similar to them. It watched them curiously, twitching with its ears, but showed no hostility and no signs of being scared. The Zorani were confused and quickly took note that their non-sapient cousin lacked one of its 4 legs, and it missed an eye. With disappointment in their hearts that the cruelty on their kin transcended council's borders, They almost lost sight of the creature as it jumped off and ran somewhere, but it stopped in its tracks, turning its small head and vocalizing something as if encouraging them to follow. The starving, displaced Zorani followed their new guide, which expertly led them through a pleasant meadow toward a nearby dwelling. It was a quiet place, with a pleasant garden and several smaller trees around it. When more of their kin got alerted about new guests, they found themselves being greeted with various vocalizations, and soon the light in the abode flicked on, illuminating the area. In that moment, the Zorani didn't know it, but they found a home, a respite from a life of wandering as strays. The Zorani found themselves face to face with two primates, guests on this pristine world who looked just as equally confused. The Zorani couldn't read their script, but the letters above clearly stated for those who could read them. Tom's and Mary's Cat Rescue Shelter. The Zorani had discovered humanity, and thus it was no wonder when months passed and news of a warm home spread among the Zorani ships, when video footages of these small Zorani-like creatures playing and sleeping next to humans and their offsprings in the comfort of their homes began circulating among disparate pack ships that grew tired of wandering. It was no wonder when young Zorani spoke of mystical cities, such as one that humans called Istanbul, as if it was the promised land where their kin were living happily among the primates. When the human scientists took great care to nurture the xenofelines that Zorani saved from extinction, and when more Zorani ships entered human space, the UN declared the Operation Forever Home, a concept no Zorani knew before. And so when human space was invaded by massive behemoth vessels from the Council to civilize them, the much smaller Zorani ships stood the line with the humans, letting out a collective hiss before their ships fearlessly pounced forward.